Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee for the City of Franklin. This is March 20th. We'll begin by the roll call, and Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Here.
And Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote? I'm here. Alderman Potts? No Potts? And no Patrick Baggett, so we're 2 for 4. That's not too bad, I guess. We don't have an agenda, so therefore we will not set an agenda. Is there any citizen comments? Anyone wish to make a citizen comment on any item that is not on the agenda? If not, then let's go to item number 2, which is a report of the Williamson County Property Assessor. Christine, introduce our guest.
Thank you, Chairman Barnhill. We are very proud today to have our Williamson County Property Assessor, Brad Coleman, with us. Brad Coleman began serving as our property assessor in Williamson County in 2012. However, he has served in the Williamson County Property Assessor's Office since 2003, and he has worked in property assessment since 1999. Brad and his office work very closely with the City of Franklin in the process of the budget process, in which we recommend, the city administrator recommends a property tax rate to the board, and his office works very closely with Williamson County trustee Karen Paris in billing property taxes for both the county and the city when that time comes. And so this is a reappraisal year for Williamson County. The city does use the same valuation as established by the county property assessor. That's a state statute in Tennessee. And so we're very pleased to have our assessor, Brad Coleman, be with us to describe this year's reappraisal process. He's going to talk about where his office is in the revaluation, but also what the schedule is for the reappraisal. So we want to thank Brad Coleman for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Christine and Chair and Board. I appreciate the opportunity to come and just share a little bit about what we're doing with Reappraisal 2025. This will be my 6th reappraisal to be a part of or be over. My joke is that I started in property assessments on April Fool's Day of 1999, and the joke kind of keeps going, but I know it's not. It's I always say I'm a Vandy fan, a father of twins, and a cancer survivor, and yet reappraisal scares me more than the other 3. So it's a big task to take on. In the first 5, I will say that the largest increase in value we've had has been a 32%, and we're looking at doubling that this time. This is actually the shortest window that we've ever been through. Historically, the county went to a 5-year reappraisal in the 90s. Before that, there was no mandated reappraisal cycle, and so jurisdictions could go decades without updating their assessments. In fact, there's some areas of the country where they haven't had an assessment change or a reappraisal since the 50s. So think about what Franklin would look like if we had not touched values in 75 years or so. But since 2021, our last reappraisal, we've just seen a significant increase in values themselves. And so just a little bit of background before we get into some numbers with you. The state mandates that every county in Tennessee reappraise every 4, 5, or 6 years. And historically, all 95 counties have been in that window. Now, I will tell you there is a push and reason to go less than 4, to have more accurate appraisals, makes it easier on budgeting. You have less shock value when you get those updated reappraisal numbers. It's very likely that some folks will see higher than a 65% increase on their property value. That's going to create some emotions, obviously. Now, what we're going to talk about today is how that relates to taxes, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay more in tax because of the certified tax rate and how those two things relate together. So this is going to be a big one. We are kind of coming into the home stretch of our reappraisal, so we don't have final numbers. However, I will tell you that we're looking at around a 65% increase overall countywide. So we do values for all jurisdictions, including the unincorporated Williamson County. So that said, we'll jump kind of right into it. Got on our screen here, thanks to Christine, she was a good proofreader for me. I had done this presentation for the County Commission, and we've changed that and updated those numbers to reflect specifically Franklin numbers. So this is just what you're going to be looking at as you kick off your budget cycle. So as you'll see, 2006, that would have been my first year in Williamson County, first reappraisal I was at in Williamson County. Franklin was looking at about $2.4 billion in total assessment. Now, keep in mind, assessment is a fractional assessment of the appraised value. So for your residential structure, that's going to be 25% is your assessed value. For your commercial, it's 40%. So when we're saying $2.4 billion, that's a fraction of the appraised value of Franklin. So 2.4, pretty easy slide there. You can see it's just kind of kept inching up from 2.4 to 3.2, 4.6. 2021, we felt like we had a big reappraisal, and we did. It was large numbers. We went up to $7.3 billion in assessed for the city of Franklin, and you'll see that big red question mark. That's 11.7. I will tell you that when I put this slide together for the county, it was a few months ago, and the numbers I'm going to give you today are estimating 55% increase. That's where we thought we were going to land just from before we jumped in. We were thinking it's going to be around a 55% increase in value. It's going to be higher than that. But the numbers I show you today are based on that 55. So when we look at 11.7 billion for January 1 of 2025, that's actually reflecting that 55% estimate of increase in value just for the city of Franklin. So, how does that look like? What does that mean for you all as you're trying to set a budget? One of our fears and one of the biggest things that we try to alleviate concern of the homeowner, of the taxpayer, is that, yes, your property went up 65% in taxes. Does that mean in assessment, does that mean my taxes are going to go up 65%? And my first answer is, gosh, I hope not. That would be an incredible increase in taxes. No's the answer. While we're charged by law to come up with the current market value for all taxable properties within the county as of January 1, we're also required to come up with what's called a certified tax rate. You may also have heard certified tax rate as a revenue neutral rate. And so the city of Franklin, Williamson County, cannot bring in excess revenue because of the reappraisal. The purpose of the reappraisal is to have corrected values and equity across the board. Keep in mind, what if one area of the county had went up 75% and another area of the county maybe it went 45%? And so the goal of my office is to be at 100% of market value, what you would hope to sell your home for as of 1/1 of 2025, this reappraisal year. So we're about to send out 100,000+ postcards to every homeowner. When you get that postcard, the first thing you're going to notice is that's a big number. Now, the second thing I want you to ask yourself, what would I hope to sell my home for today? That's the goal that we're trying to come up with. So when the certified rate or a revenue neutral rate is calculated, that is to make sure that all the municipalities and or the county have a set number to start with that is revenue neutral. We cannot bring in more money just because of the reappraisal. So as you look at this slide in 2024, for the city of Franklin, the total assessed value was about $7.6 billion. And y'all are very familiar with your tax rate, 0.3261. And so that gives us taxes based off of that 7.6 of $25 million. So as we move across the slide for 2025, we have a much different assessed value at $11.7 billion. But with that, we have an indicated certified tax rate of 0.2110. And so I put indicated certified tax rate. That has not been officially calculated yet by me, and it definitely has not been certified by the Comptroller's Office or the Division of Property Assessment. But that is the number that would be generated on the estimated $11.7 billion. You put those two numbers, you still get $25 million. And so what ends up happening is if your house goes up a little more than average, you're going to pay a little bit more in taxes on that certified rate. If your house goes up below the average increase, you're going to pay less in taxes based on that certified tax rate. Every jurisdiction, every board, the county commission will do the same. They will then have to set their budget. What are the needs that you have in the next fiscal year? And so then you're going to have to come up, if it is in excess of that $25 million, then you would have to come up with a tax rate that exceeds that 0.2110. Christine was helping me out yesterday and said that to our knowledge, the city of Franklin has not had a tax increase above that certified rate but once, and that was in 2016. And so historically, y'all have adopted that certified rate, again, a revenue neutral rate, no tax increase. Again, if your house went up more than the average, yes, you would pay a little more. If it went down less than the average, you'd pay less. And these numbers, again, are based off of that 55% increase. We're actually seeing probably going to be a little bit more than that, which also means that certified tax rate's going to be a little bit lower as we get into May. All right. To kind of further explain this a little bit, I've got just 3 examples, pretty simple slide here, but Home A, for tax year 24, it has a value, an average value in Franklin of $600,000. This year, based on this 55% increase of value, that $600,000 house is now worth $930,000. Taxes paid in 24 were $490 to the city of Franklin. But with that certified rate, they're going to pay $490, the same amount, no tax increase for Home A. For Home B, again, it had a value of $600,000 in 24, but it went up a little less than the average. It only went up 50%. Its value is now $900,000. You'll see their taxes were $490 last year, but this year they're going to be $475 to the city of Franklin because they went up less than the average. Home C went up 60%, again, up 5% more than the average increase overall. You'll see the taxes again last year, $490. Now they'll pay $505, a little more. So pretty simple. One a little bit below, one above, and how that relates to what they actually pay in taxes to the city of Franklin. Christine was very quick to want to put in that second bullet point there. This does not take into account what the county and or Franklin Special School District does. That's a very important factor. Gosh, we have a lot of tax rates in this county. When I'm trying to do all the certified rates between all of your municipalities, Franklin Special, Franklin Inside and Outside, there's quite a few to look at. And so what we're trying to project here is just the city of Franklin. That being said, here's our timeline of what we're looking at. January 1st of 25 is our effective date of assessment. So that's where we're trying to say, if you're selling that house as of January 1, what's that property worth? That's that effective date of assessment. The values that we send out in May are going to be as that date, January 1. So we're finalizing that March and April, getting ready to send our first batch of numbers to the state for approval. They're our main audit. Once we get approval from them, we will be printing, again, about 120,000 postcards or love letters to all of our residents throughout the county. As soon as those notices hit mailbox, the phone calls will come in. Phone calls, emails, walk-ins. What is this and what does this mean for me? That's what we're calling an informal appeal. So if you get that notice from me and you say there is absolutely no way that this property is worth that, let's call and have a conversation about it. When I first started, I first came in 2006, we had the hallways lined with chairs and people were filling them. All day long you talk to people in person. 4 years ago was not the case. It was a whole lot of phone calls. A lot of people are calling. You still have some that come in, but majority are phone calls, emails, online submittals. Hey, I don't understand what this is, or in fact, I don't think this is what my house is worth. Can we have a conversation about that? And that really is what an informal appeal is. It's Mr. Barnhill, what do you think this house is worth? Let's look at how I have that property listed. We want to make sure that our records are correct. On my longer stump speech, I kind of go into how those statistics are brought in, but every home in the county is measured at the time of construction. So we get a notice of permit. We're going to come out. We're actually required by law to pull tape on every house so that we know the square footage, the type of construction. Is it brick? Is it vinyl, hardy plank, solid surface countertops? Is it hardwood and tile, or is it carpet linoleum? We want to know the characteristics of that home, square footage and year built being two of the biggest of those, because all that matters to what that value is. So in an informal appeal, that's going to be that first question. Let's make sure that the information we have is correct. Once we agree on that, then let's just talk about value. If you're in Maplewood, let's pull some stats in Maplewood. How many homes sold in that subdivision and make sure that we are in line. If we're not, we're going to change that. We don't want to, it doesn't help us at all to be overvalued. We want it to be correct as of that January 1 assessment date. Informal appeals will be the entire month of May, and then we will move into June, where the County Board of Equalization meets. The county board is made up of 5 individuals that are throughout the county. That's the first formal level of appeal, and that gives the taxpayer an opportunity to come before that board, present their evidence of why they think that our values are incorrect, and then get an impartial ear, if you will. 99.5% of the residential hearings are settled at that level. Beyond the county board, you can go to state board, you can go to Chancery Court, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court. We've had one in the history to Supreme. I've had one in my time that we went to the Court of Appeals recently. Mostly those are commercial, very large commercial properties. So 99.5% of your residents are going to be settled at the informal or county board level. The comptroller is going to start working on that May date of looking at my certified tax rate numbers, approving those, and then you all are going to be looking at getting that tax rate approved, not only the certified rate, recognizing it, but then deciding, is that going to be enough for what our budget requests are for the next fiscal year? Once all that's settled, Ms. Karen Paris, our trustee, is going to get all that information, and tax bills will be mailed out in October, which will reflect my office's new number and the jurisdiction's new tax rate. That's pretty good. That's about as fast as I can get through it. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Any questions from the two aldermen here? I do have a question. What does 1 cent generate then for the city?
That might be.
I'll start with the county while Christine's calculating the city over here. You know what it is?
We were more about 700,000, so it was 750 this year.
Now,
Right around 750, yeah.
But in the slide, I'll go back to where Brad was talking about where 2025 might be. That takes us a little bit over 1.1 million for a penny. Certainly, as staff, we didn't know where Brad would be coming out on this number. We've been doing some, we've been doing some guessing of our own as staff, and we were talking about, and of course, the math was easy, but to do this, we were talking about 1 million. But that was before we knew that Brad was looking at 55 to 60%. So 55 takes you over 1.1 million, and certainly, as Brad said, if his final number is closer to 60%, then it'll be somewhat higher. But the 55%, if you round it down, gets you to 1.1 million.
so the 11.7 billion is new construction and increased in value of existing.
Now, new growth does not factor into
Does not factor
the
in.
calculation. So if you've got, if you have a piece of property, and I've got Brad here to make sure I say this correctly, but if you build a house on a green field, and that house is that's not reappraisal, that's growth. So the growth does not go into the certified tax rate calculation. However, as Brad was describing in the next, he gave the example of the home that's been here, that's valued right now at 600,000, or 600, and then goes to 900,000. That's the growth. That's not growth, that's an increase in reassessment. And that does get captured in the certified tax rate calculation. So we can't keep that incremental increase. It's just if there's new growth, new houses, new buildings, new commercial buildings, things like that.
Yeah, you definitely should continue to get your growth money or new monies, as a lot of people would call it. We're adding anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 homes a year, a lot of those being in Franklin. You will still get all of that growth money. In addition to that, you're going to get all the pools, patios, decks, basement finish outs, all those things as well, what we would call new construction. We will take all of those new monies out of our calculations for the certified tax rate. So you will get that growth money, if you will.
And you see in the revenue model, every year, property tax goes up because it's our estimate for what that growth is going to be. So that factor of growth, we usually keep it around 3% a year. That's already sort of built into the initial assumptions that we give you in January. I also would note that, when you go through a reappraisal year, when it comes to budgeting, it is a timing issue. So we do have a benefit that we have moved this meeting in May forward a week. And so that means that the budget will be delivered to all of you a week later than it normally would be, to buy as much time as possible. It still may be that it's not quite ready to go when the budget's presented here. Hopefully, it will be by the time of first reading. So we will, usually what we've done is we will put forward the best estimate we have. Hopefully, we've got it, but if we don't, we'll put in the best estimate we have. Eric will present to you an assumption of what that rate will be, and then any potential increase above that rate, should we decide to do an increase and not take the certified rate. You are legally obligated to set a tax rate every year as part of a property tax ordinance, and that will certainly be no different this year.
Alderman Peters, no questions? Mark, any questions?
No, sir, thank you.
I'm going to do this a little differently than what we've done. Any questions from anyone sitting in the audience? Just about every one of you, if not every one of you, are going to be affected by what's happening, whether you live in Franklin, Fairview, Williamson County, Noblesville, or wherever. You will be affected somewhat by this. Do you have a question? You have the person here who has the answer. May not be the answer you want to hear, but it is the answer. All right, if I see none,
I will say if people are shy to ask, I'll leave a few cards up here on the table, and if
Okay.
anybody thinks of a question, I'll be glad to answer. Email and phone numbers are
All
on.
right.
So I'll leave those here.
I've got to ask, was the 11.7 billion is existing as of January the 1st?
It is, that would be every home that's been finalized, that's all your new construction. And that also captures all of that increase in value on your existing construction that's currently still valued as though it's January 1 of '21.
Okay.
So once a value set for that reappraisal, our last one, January 1 of '21, the only time that value changes is if you make a change to your property. You add a pool, we're picking up the pool. You have storm damage, we're lowering it for the storm damage. But if no changes are made to the physical property itself, that value is frozen as of 1/1/21, the last reappraisal. It doesn't change until 1/1/25, our current reappraisal.
All right, if there's no other questions, Brad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Been very informative, enlightening. Let's go then to item 3, which is the budget presentation with the Cool Springs Conference Center. Christine, do you want to introduce these gentlemen? Michael, you want to do it? Okay. Yeah.
So you have two budget presentations today. We have fine folks from the Cool Springs Conference Center to give you their annual update, look back and look ahead. And then the final and largest item for the day is the Public Works Program area. Once we're done today, we'll do a quick synopsis, Christine and I, of the road ahead in April and in May. But without further ado.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Layoff. I'm the general manager at the Franklin Marriott Cool Springs, and I'm here with Andy Duncan, who is kind of my right hand, and he oversees the conference center operation pretty much single-handedly. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about the history of the conference center profit and loss, the operational summary, some upcoming exciting projects, and possible challenges in the upcoming fiscal year. So as you can see from this slide, the conference center has been extremely profitable over the last 25 years, totaling up to a little over $4 million in profit for the city of revenue for the city of Franklin. We did have a couple of off years. If you look at 2015, and that's important because I'll talk about that in a minute. That was a renovation year where the conference center was taken offline, basically shut down for a little over a month. And then you can see some pretty steady growth through 2019. And then obviously in 2020, March of 2020, we all know that COVID kind of devastated the conference and hotel business. So in 21, we lost quite a bit of money, but we came back in 22 and had a banner year. And I will say in 2020, had that not happened, we were on pace to have a record year. So 2022 was phenomenal. 23 fiscal dropped off a little bit, but I'll talk a little bit about our operational summary, how the conference center is run, and how the allocations are split between the hotel and the conference center. First of all, the hotel and conference center were built in 1999. The hotel has 303 guest rooms that really help support that efforts of the conference center from a group standpoint. The hotel is managed by Chartwell Hospitality, which is a local Franklin company. We have a pretty large footprint of hotels throughout the city of Franklin and Williamson County. Most expenses in the conference center are shared. So if we look at admin in general, which is my salary and the expenses for the administration in general, those are split as a total combined revenue percentage. So we combine the revenue of the hotel and the conference center, and whatever that split is, that's how those expenses are split. The sales is split 50-50, and then the catering and event management team is 100% to the conference center. Food and beverage, most expenses are split as a percentage of food revenue. And the engineering department I didn't mention is also the same as admin in general, at a split on a percentage of total revenue between the two entities. So some exciting things are happening in the conference center, obviously with a 25, 26-year-old building. We start to see end of life for a lot of mechanical items. So our air walls that separate the large conference center, we're in the process of replacing those right now. It was getting to a point where it was actually a safety hazard, and it was a detriment to, to being able to service our guests. So that project will be complete in April. $678,000 was the cost for that. We have a chiller replacement, which is the HVAC for the entire facility, hotel and conference center. The conference center's piece of that was $138,000. I can't remember the whole project cost, but the chiller is 30%. The conference center is responsible for 30% of the total cost. The cooling tower was replaced, and again, that was a 30% contribution from the conference center at $78,000. We replaced all of our banquet tables, and we replaced some original kitchen equipment that we used to cook the banquet food. So, and then some carryover items, our kitchen floor, we're going to be refurbishing for $40,000 in August, and we'll do that during the renovation of the conference center while it's out of service. We're going to do a full soft goods and basically an aesthetic overhaul of the entire conference center. It'll include carpet, wall vinyl, some artwork, soft seating, lighting. It will be, once we're done, it will be the premier facility in Williamson County once again. It's gotten a little tired, so it's long overdue, and we're pretty excited about that. And then you'll see a few other items: walk-in refrigerator refurbishment, ice machines, kitchen equipment again. Some of the things that are impacting our current fiscal year is, we still continue to have some staffing challenges, not nearly as bad as they were after COVID, but I think we're a little bit more fortunate than a lot of people. We have some tenured staff, and I think that helps us. But it still becomes a problem. And then wages obviously are on the rise. We continue to be challenged by outliers like downtown Nashville and trying to keep people from leaving us to go there for more money. So that's a constant challenge. We also have some volatile costs and products and services. With some of the tariffs that are coming out, it's going to affect a lot of our products like terry and linen and food. Coffee just went up 10%. So, it's going to affect us all across the board. And how we kind of counter that is by increasing our prices so it gets passed on to the consumer. Natural disasters, we had, wildfires and flooding last year. Some of those providers of goods were in those areas, so that affected us from a cost standpoint. But we do have it's called a vendor. It's a purchasing umbrella through Marriott and Chartwell, and it's an entity that basically goes out and shops for all of our products and gets us the best prices. We get rebates from that as well. So, and then when we do the capital projects, obviously we get 2 to 3 bids where we can. What else is going to affect us? The increased competition in the Franklin and Nashville area. There are a lot of select service hotels that are being built, so those affect us more from a room side and small meetings. They're not going to affect us as much on the large meetings because the facilities just can't handle them. As far as our convention and meeting events, there's been a little bit of a turnover in our sales team this year. We've been able to fill most positions quickly, but there is a ramp-up period for new managers, and that particularly affects us on the catering side for catering sales, not as much as group sales. And then I do want to say, so looking at, and this isn't listed on here, but looking at the current budget, going back to that first slide on the financials, so you can see in 2015, I don't know what the total was there, but probably about $30,000 to $40,000, I think. I don't know if you have that, but so we're looking at, for this fiscal year, $66,000 profit for the entire year. Now, that doesn't compare to our $400,000 that we've had in the past, but this is taking all of August offline. So that's where we're getting hit pretty hard, but we're still going to show a profit for the year, even though we're going to be out of business for an entire month. If I take an adjusted revenue, if I pull out August and I adjust the current budget for that, it's about a 4.6% increase in revenue. So that's where we're at, and we're excited to have I would call it almost a new facility and at the end of August. The renovation is slated for August, and if we're not done by the end of August, we're going to be in some trouble because we got some big groups coming in. So, but we'll get it done. Do you have any questions for me or Andy?
Alderman Peterson?
I got my back to everybody.
I don't, but it's pretty clear cut. It's pretty clean. It's that way every year when you come to us. It's just a matter of getting the people back in and getting over whatever issues we've had, but the issues are not necessarily, or not with the conference center, with the local governments, whatever, so.
Yeah, and I think, the little bit of a dip from 22 to current is anytime there's an election year, general election, it's, you have you feel it, a little bit, so.
Alderman Baggett, do you have any questions or comments? Yes, sir. All right. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Y'all have a good day.
All right, let's go to budget presentation for Public Works. Item number 4 on the agenda. Mark, you want to lead this off?
Sure. Thank you very much. I have the great pleasure of working with our Public Works team. They're dedicated to maintaining and enhancing our infrastructure and providing services to our citizens every day. We have 281 budgeted positions in streets, water management, parks, sanitation, environmental services, and emergency management departments. And they work tirelessly to ensure safety, sustainability, and quality services. They're a huge part in safeguarding our public health, protecting the environment, and improving our quality of life for both residents and visitors. So our first up today is our Streets Department, and I'd like to introduce Jerry Hatcher, who's the director, Derek McCord, the assistant director, and Kim Hammond, who's our fleet manager. So with that, let them take off.
Sure, you're up.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Chairman Barnhill and committee. Good to be with you guys. It's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be with you and coming before you in this, my new role as director. And, I'm only the fourth. There's only been 4 since 1987. when the streets department was established. So I consider it a real honor, real privilege. And Mark, thanks for introducing my team here. I'm very proud of these guys here, Derek and Kim. We're very blessed to have them in the roles that they're in and leading the city the way that they are. So we'll move on right here.
Jerry,
Yes, sir.
I've been through all 4 of them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now that I think about it, yeah, 87. Continue on.
Absolutely. So here you can see how we're organized, the main divisions that we have here. Maintenance division mainly thinking about, right-of-way, landscape, street maintenance teams. Traffic division certainly taking care of the signals and the striping and signs. Fleet maintenance taking care of all of our vehicles and equipment. And stormwater maintenance team. And so that fine group of 77 employees takes care of 785 lane miles of roads, 128 or so signals, over 500 vehicles, over 650 pieces of equipment. So that's quite a workload, but these guys do a tremendous job with that. And the last thing I'll say on this slide here is that, our focus is to, in the maintenance world, we tend to kind of lean on being reactive, but we want to be more proactive. So that's our goal. We want to be more proactive, and one way we do that is through more effectively maintaining our assets or your asset management practices. So you're going to hear me talk about that a little bit here today. We'll linger on this for just a little bit here, hitting some of the key achievements for us in 2024. On the paving program, I think everybody can see we made a lot of progress here in the last year. I will say, and you can see there the number of streets and the number of lane miles, that was up substantially from the year before. This was a record year for us last year. As far as dollars, that's a little bit over $10 million, which was an all-time high for us. And that comes through good planning, good budgeting, all this effort that we're going through. All this is paid off. So we made a lot of progress in the last year. Going back to asset management, one thing we've been doing, at least it's 2020, is doing some pavement preservation. And why are we doing that? We're trying to extend that life cycle of those pavements. We're making big investments each year in those pavements. We want those to last as long as possible. Pavement preservation helps us do that. So I've got a couple methods that we use here, a couple techniques. Crack filling, and we're doing that, not today because it's a little chillier. Welcome to spring, but a little bit chillier today. But we started that in recent weeks, doing crack filling around the city. You may have seen some of that. There was some on one section of Liberty Pike here recently. And then Rejuvenator will be putting that out pretty soon. And that Rejuvenator too is going to extend the life of those pavements. We're hoping, like the crack fill should get us another 3 or 4 years out of those pavements. And the Rejuvenator could be even a little bit longer. So that's, like the crack filling, that investment was only around $8,000 to do that 10 miles. If you resurface that, just the material would be probably $60,000. So for a pretty small investment, that's the best bang for the buck you can do is crack fill, and Rejuvenator's right there close to it. Made a lot of progress. First, with sidewalk programs, we did have some sidewalk gap projects we were able to do in 2024. Those are listed. Big improvements on Claude Yates Drive. Worked with Parks and Water Management on those projects, and very successful projects. Hopefully you guys have seen that firsthand. I want to linger just a minute on the faster fleet management software that got implemented over the last year. This has been a goal of the streets in the city for several years, and it came to fruition this last year. That tool, and I talked about asset management, if you think about, of course, roads being big assets, but, when we're talking about over 500 vehicles and over 650 pieces of equipment, that's a big investment as well. So we need to do the best we can in managing it. This faster software that the city's invested in and the effort that's gone into it is really going to help us better with making, data-driven decisions, help us to optimize our fleet as far as how long we may retain equipment, trying to look at, depreciation versus salvage value, things like that. There's a lot of analysis we can do with that tool that's really going to help us with software. Ms. Kim here could talk to you as long as you want about that tool and how glad she is to have it, her and her team. We completed the wayfinding sign program. That was a very big effort, but those signs look great. we talked about paving, but resurfacing of Crothers Parkway. Hopefully, everybody's noticed that improvement. That was pretty ambitious, Brentwood city limits down to South Crothers Road, so just south of 96, So really big stretch, but that was badly needed and much improved, I'll say that. We do some other projects that, not what you typically would expect, but, so in the last year, and it was 11 months ago, I believe. So I think we're almost on the year anniversary of it as of next month. But the installation of the Jimmy Gentry statue, we had and Mr. Grubb that's retired this last year. He was instrumental and others in the streets team with helping support that effort. So we're very proud of that. The last thing here, and this kind of concludes what I want to talk to you about asset management. The pipe culverts, stormwater pipe culverts, in particular the cross drains underneath the roadways, a lot of times you don't think about those or hear about them until there's a failure. And then we got a major problem having to dig those out. We want to be proactive with those. So as a result, have developed a stormwater pipe culvert management program, which number one, we're going to go out there and identify all those pipe culverts so we know where they are. We're going to assess them and know what condition they're in. And then we're going to be able to really prioritize which one needs to be done first, and then we've got several tools in the toolbox as far as techniques we can use to rehab those pipes. So we can go ahead and repair them and do something less costly than do a complete dig out, which is very disruptive, in particular, of course, in neighborhoods or really anywhere. So we're very proud of that program, and we'll keep you guys, posted on some of those things. Okay, org chart, I know that's hard to see on the slide, apologize for that. No changes, I'll just say that we're not adding any personnel. There was a few changes when Derek came on board as assistant director and I started in director. As far as who we support, there was a little bit of a change there, but other than that, we're keeping the same level of staff. Next slide. Okay, we're going to first here the streets maintenance division. From a personnel standpoint, again, staying at that same particular level, no major changes there. On the operations side of street maintenance, again, we're really holding at the same level, just a little bit lower with the reason that's given there. We got a PER regarding personnel. This is the only one regarding personnel we have. It's a reclass of an admin secretary position to an admin assistant. One thing I would tell you is that that's pretty a consistent thing that the city's looked at doing in a lot of different areas. I think a lot of departments have looked at that too. And basically, what are we trying to do? We're trying to go a little bit higher position and increase really the competencies and the skill sets with that so we can be more productive. We can hold the same number of people, but we can have somebody that's got greater competency, can take on a little more workload for us that's beneficial there. So, yes.
And two items, or two points on this slide. Number one, G should be a D, not secretary is a lower position on the pay scale than an admin assistant. It has been sort of a slow focus as we've gone through this particular position citywide. I think there's also one in water that's left. We would look to eventually reclass all of these to assistants because the job has physically changed over the years. That's in the same spirit of this, so that all of them would end up being admin assistants because we try to have individuals who are efficient enough and can take on enough responsibilities that they're not just sitting at a desk waiting for the phone to ring, per se. So.
Okay, moving on in last year in street maintenance, these are the PERs associated with that area. The first one there, track skid steer replacement. You can see we've got a very old machine here that we would like to upgrade. We really need one with a higher capacity that's going to help us in street maintenance. In particular, we have a milling head attachment. That's used to remove asphalt when you've got a bad area. We need one with a little bit higher capacity to allow us to do that successfully. So there's a great need there. I think I've got that number 3 out of mind. Salt brine production equipment. I'm going to linger on that for just a minute. This is really more on the facility side. Last year, some of you guys may recall, we had a salt brine production equipment request in there, but that was more for the equipment itself. Let me just clarify this here. This portion here is really intended for the facility. They would house like the controls for that particular unit. The portions need to be inside, some storage, like for brine tanks, some salt storage. So we need some money for a new facility for that. So that's what this is for, so just to clarify that. And then the last thing here is just this would be in addition to the fleet, a new 3/4-ton pickup truck for the landscape team, who is currently fully staffed, and we're grateful for that. But because they're fully staffed, and have been for a while, that there is a need for additional truck to be able to take the resources, more efficiently and effectively where we need them. And it'll have the capacity to with towing a trailer and the equipment that's needed for it. Okay, we'll move on to the traffic division. Personnel standpoint, staying at the same level, so really no make changes there. Operations, you can see there too. Really no changes in the operational cost, but you can see here there's an explanation why you see some decrease on that. On the capital side, this was a platform truck that we've had that's an older truck that we're trying to get replaced, but there were some different reasons that were causing the delay in the delivery fiscal year 25 to 26, so that's the reason for that. Okay, this may seem familiar to you. We've come forward the last several years with a need or request for electrostatic painting, and these we brought forth in past years a much bigger number. I think it was 180,000 last year. That included traffic signals, bollards, and streetlight poles. So this year, in looking at this again, what I've determined is the traffic signal poles have been painted the most recent out of all three of these areas. And so I'm going to maybe delay that. And so I've reduced this down to just the bollards and the streetlight poles. This year, though, instead of kind of giving you a broad picture, I zoomed in and gave you a closer look. So if you were and these are all on the square right here, these two images that you see. And so the bollards might look good as you're driving through the square, but then, when you look down on top, you can see where you'll have some flaking of the paint and the rusting that's resulted. And then some of these bases are really obvious, like you see here, and you'll see that throughout the poles. And so this is being proposed at 97 instead of 180,000. And then we can break that up and just do the bollards, and it's roughly about half the cost of that. So you're 40-something thousand for the bollards, 40-something thousand for those lighting poles. And what I would say, as far as the work, it's going to be blasting off of the existing material primed, and then electrostatic painting is going to be the scope of the work for that. Okay. Okay, moving on to fleet. From a personnel standpoint, staying at the same level. We'll continue to kind of monitor that and Mr. Chairman, we talked about that, I think, last year, a little bit about staffing and so forth. We're kind of looking at that at some point. That may have to increase, but we're holding the line now. Again, trying to do what we can to be as efficient as we can and work within the staffing level that we have. So pretty much we're holding the same level in personnel.
Must have been a question from the audience.
We'll come back to that, I guess.
All right.
Okay, operations side of fleet. Really, everything's holding the same here. Let's see, I know we had this was kind of I guess a bad budget number that we'd put in and recognize that. And so we wanted to be more in line with historical expenditures. And so that's what we've done. So we've made a correction here. So it looks like a dramatic increase, but it's really not just an error with a particular budget. Anything else, Michael, on that?
The budget and performance team has worked very diligently with Kim to take a look at this. Fleet is one of those few departments where it's kind of a contra account. So fleet does the work and then bills it back to the department. So when you see labor cost, or you see equipment and repair and vehicle costs in departments, the vast majority of that is what the fleet department basically bills back against. So that means that they are sending money, though, into fleet because the salaries are being paid out of fleet. So it's really making sure and truing up that reimbursement. The budget number was simply too low for this year. This amount that's in there is much more in line with where it's trending for fiscal 25 actuals and fiscal 24 actuals.
Thank you, Michael, for that. Okay, I'm going to let Ms. Kim Hammond here go over the next two slides.
Thank you.
So this slide is for mobile lifts. We've presented this a couple of times. We're wanting enough sets where we can do 3 garbage trucks on a Friday. Right now, we can do 2 oil changes on a Friday, and then of course, we rotate out. If we get 3 more sets, or 2 more sets, we can do 3 of the trucks that you're seeing there on a Friday. And I think it's worth noting that for a tower fire truck, it takes 3 of those sets to lift one of those. So with additional sets, if we have a tower truck down and we have to utilize the lifts for it, we still will have enough sets. If we have a garbage truck or a dump truck even go down, we can pull those in and be able to lift those up and perform repairs if needed. Whereas now, if we had a tower truck down and had a garbage truck go down, we wouldn't have enough lifts to lift up that truck until we were done with the lifts on the tower fire truck that was in there right now. So that's where that comes into play there. And it just makes us more efficient, and it helps us with space. We kind of laugh at Fleet. It's kind of like a Jenga game in there on Fridays, trying to get those trucks and stuff in there. So this kind of help with some capacity as well.
So is that the largest truck you service?
No, no, sir. The largest truck we service is the tower fire trucks, the biggest fire trucks they have, and it takes 6 of those. That's actually a rear loader. We do the side loaders too, the automated ones. So no, that's not the biggest one. Any questions on that? Okay,
And when you say a set, is that
2.
2 towers?
Yeah, 2 of those is a
So
set.
one set is 2 towers or 2 sets?
You can look at
I
them
would-
as, you can look at them individually as about 15, 16,000 apiece, but
Okay.
you can't, you need 2, but you really need 4 to
Right.
lift up a truck. 2 really, 2 helps us, but 4 lifts up 1 truck, and 6 will lift up a tower truck.
So are you asking for 4?
Yes, correct.
All right.
The next slide. I'm ready for the next, there we go. And this is just our consumer vehicle replacement program. It shows last year where we were asking for the 2807. And it gives a breakdown of what we have. And then what we're asking for the next year. And there is a carryover of about 985,000. That could change before, it could change in a month. Because some of the things we have on order, you know, they give us a time frame, but we're not guaranteed that they'll come in. So that number could change and actually go down a little if we get more vehicles in. But we've really done well getting rid of a lot of older vehicles that needed to go away. And then we've also had a little capacity, because this is a fluid budget number, and it overlaps every year. And since 2020, the statewide contract, they've bidded it every year. They used to bid every 2 years. So when they bid it, it kind of delays on the newer models and getting those quotes. And so it kind of overlaps, but it has helped us because we've had a couple of departments that may have had accidents or something and needed a replacement quickly. So it gives us capacity to kind of service those. Admin's one of the most recent ones. Their vehicle had a major failure, and we're able to get them a vehicle on order and serve that with that little bit of capacity, because we do have that lap over every year of this budget. And I don't know that that would ever change. I'd like to say that maybe it would, but I don't know that that's ever going to change. I think there's always going to be a little lap there, overlap in this budget fund, just because there's delays we may not know about or can predict in the budget, and I mean, the statewide contract being rebid and stuff. So, any questions on that one?
So I think when we implemented this a few years back, which I'm glad we did, there should theoretically be some point in time in which the fund is, you're seeing just normal cost increase of cost of the vehicles, but we're on a schedule and the fund should level out. Like, I don't expect like $1 million every year. I mean, it's continuing to go up by, you know, unless the cost of vehicles are going up, right? So where are we before we get to that kind of point where, I mean, how many vehicles have we replaced under this program? Are we getting, how many do we feel like, are we getting to a place where, yeah, we can start budgeting $4 million a year, roundabout, plus normal increases in costs of vehicles? Does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'd be glad to address that. So we were, this funding was, this program was very critical because we were in a hole there and we were looking for solutions and how do we get out of the hole? And so providing the funding when it was seeded initially and can continue to fund it has allowed us to kind of dig out of that hole. You're exactly right, Alderman Baggett, that there's a point where it should normalize, or, we had to spike it, but there should be some point where that levels off and then you're kind of a little bit more consistent, I would say, right? I think, and I see like you had on the slide here at the bottom, 28 consumer vehicles, so that gives some idea of the number. We can get back to you to give you the exact number since the program started, but that wouldn't be too hard to come up with. I don't have that available readily here today. But what I can say is, I mentioned the faster software system. What we're trying to do, and this is part of our goals and targets this year, and Kim and I working together, is trying to look at really a replacement schedule for our vehicles. I would like to start really with consumer vehicles so I can better answer your question. Once I know that, I can kind of have a better idea of when is that going to sort of normalize. But we're going to continue that effort, and it may take us a couple of years, but we'll look at different classes of vehicles and equipment for the city to try to optimize that. Again, you heard me make a comment earlier about, I'm looking at my initial cost, and then I've got depreciation, then I got a salvage value. I kind of want to look at where some of these things collide. We look at maintenance costs, so I've got better access to maintenance records through the reports that I can run. Sometimes I'll see a piece of equipment and it's a little bit of anomaly as far as the maintenance costs on it. And I'll call Kim and go, what's going on with this particular vehicle? Well, it's got transmission problems. We've taken it. We've had to outsource it 3 times on the transmission. Then we'll make a quick decision. We need to sell that one probably because it's not only costly, it's taken up some of our technician time, valuable time, when we need to be servicing other important equipment. We want to reduce the overall age of the fleet, for sure, and that's when we come up with this replacement schedule, we'll have a better idea, what are we trying to target? I will say, everything doesn't have to be shiny and new, or even 4 or 5 years old. There's some areas and some departments, in particular Public Works, that might need a older truck or something. They're just like parks, may need something just to run around the fields. What we try to do, though, is as we get new vehicles in, sometimes we may do some maneuvering around and we go, you know what, this truck was in streets, but it would be ideal for parks because they've told us they need a truck just for their field, to run around. So we're trying to optimize things that way as well. So we don't look just department to department. We look at it more globally and try to make the best decision with the vehicles. Does that help? I can't give you the exact answer. Does that help, Alderman Baggett?
Specifically, like police units, if you add up the last 2 years, that's 51 vehicles. How many, we can't have more than 150, how many police vehicles do we have? 150?
We have
200,
I think.
How many police employees do we have?
That I don't know.
So
That I don't know.
this is also an area that we look at. There are 151 employees in the Franklin Police Department, but you've got different vehicles for different needs. So that is inclusive of undercover and CID units and those sorts of things that do cycle out differently. So it's not just cruisers.
Understood.
Certainly, and we'll get you the numbers. I understand, sort of questions of what is the average age of the fleet? What is what is the cycle we want to get to in terms of maximizing warranties and minimizing repairs? Certainly, we are a long way from where we were when I started, where, I started in 2014 and we still had a 2003 Crown Vics as frontline police cruisers. And that's why this fund really was started, was to get away from that.
No, I think that's geared toward, I don't have to know the exact answer, but, when you're talking about 200 vehicles in police, maybe, this is a quarter of them. And then if you would think that would, on a 4-year, then are we doing these every 4 years? Or, those are the kinds of questions.
Yep.
But for another time, thank you.
Any other questions? Ann, you have any questions?
Okay. Moving on here, we're moving on to street aid. Okay, and this is, highlighting, again, street aid covers just funding for the local streets, right? We're using the GO bonds for the major thoroughfares as far as resurfacing. So the dollars you see here would be for local streets. And you can see here between these 2 fiscal years, very, very, very similar. So we're proposing to hold that same level. We think that's adequate, for the resurfacing of the local streets. Okay, moving on to stormwater. Personnel holding that same level.
Jerry,
Oh, yes. Yes, sir. Mayor?
I understand gasoline tax goes to do a lot of our street resurfacing, but this general obligation bond we just issued had $9 million for resurfacing. Is that to cover what we've already repaved, or is that for future repaving?
The bond issue that closes next week included the resurfacing seasons in '23, '24, which will be reimbursed, and then 4 seasons here in '25, the paving season that just started. So that will actually go into fiscal '26, given that our paving season goes, Jerry, I believe, till late October, 1st of November, if you need it. So the 3 years that are within that 9 million are '23, '24, and '25.
Sure, and I think during the last year, I mentioned about 10 million, so you can see roughly, 6 million, maybe a little bit less, or so was on that side of it. But thanks for that question.
It's also important to point out that this fund, 60% of it, 2/3 of it comes from the gas tax. Property tax makes up the majority of the rest of it. We do put a little bit of additional money from general fund resources for sidewalk gaps. That was started about 10 years ago. And I think we're estimating $120,000 this upcoming year from sports gambling revenues. So part of the Tennessee State Sports Gaming Act, 80% went to education, but I think roughly 15% went to local governments, and it can only be used to repave roads. So as you think about watching the Preds on FanDuel, know that that is going to repave your roads.
Okay. Last thing I'll just say, and you can keep the slide where it is there, Michael, on that one, but I would just say that you guys, public, may be interested in knowing, we show these dollars here, and we're paving some streets. There's a methodology that we're using for that. It's very deliberate. It's very data-driven. We're the last several years here, and we're on about a 3-year cycle where we're going and do a condition assessment on all of our roads on the whole network. And that helps us to prioritize, know kind of how far have roads deteriorated, enables us to set priorities. And that's worked very well for us to make sure, we don't want to miss some roads that need attention, and then they deteriorate further, which costs more to bring them back up to where you want them. So that's been a real effective program, and that will be something we'll continue, but certainly over the last 6 years, that's been the approach that we've taken. So I just want to add that. Okay. Stormwater Division, yes.
I just want to make one quick
Sure.
comment. While we're on the street paving, went on spring break last week to a city I will not name. And I'm driving down the city streets, and I'm bumping. It feels like I'm on an off-road excursion with my kids. And my kids are like, Dad, what is going on? I'm like, we're just driving down a street that is not located in Franklin, Tennessee, where they are smooth as ice. So good job. The public, it's one thing we take, we take for granted. It's like when your air conditioner just turns on and works, you take for granted, but when it stops, when you experience a road that is not as pristine as ours are, you notice, even the Baggett kids. And I wanted to thank you all for that, but in the whole department, because our roads are exceptional. I think all the aldermen and the mayor would agree. You guys do a great job. So while for the bang for the buck, you guys are banging. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you.
Felt like that was the time.
Are you sure you don't want to name the city? Some of us might want to, avoid it.
It was out of state.
Oh,
So I was,
good enough, yeah. Hey,
I'm just thinking about the streets in subdivisions where they put that fiber down. These streets themselves are in not good shape after that, even though supposedly that wasn't going to be affecting the street, but it has.
Yes, Alderman Peterson, thanks for that comment. Yeah, we are, there are a lot of telecommunication companies trying to come in and add fiber. And so they do submit plans to us, and then we will only approve certain sections at a time. We don't let them blanket the city at once. Why is that? Because we want to make sure and hold them accountable. So we'll let them do one area, and if that doesn't meet our standards or requirements, then we're not going to release them anywhere else. We're going to make them, stay there until that's brought back at the level it should. So, and if there's any particular spots that you guys encounter that you're concerned about, I'd be glad to come out and personally meet with you guys and look at it. But we do have one or more inspectors that go out and monitor that work as it's going on, and certainly monitor to make sure that it's brought back up to a satisfactory condition. And as far as the softscape and the roadway, I say. So that I assure you guys, we do monitor that, and we set a pretty high bar, I think, for them, and they understand that, I feel like. But if there's some isolated problems out there or lingering problems, I certainly would like to know that. But thank you for that comment.
Any other questions or comments? Next.
Okay. So Stormwater Division personnel holding the same level, so really no change there. Operational side, same thing. I mean, that's getting pretty close there, isn't it? Okay, and this is the last slide here. So again, this is on the stormwater side. The one PER we have is a replacement of a street sweeper. We have 3 of these units, and so here's one of them. I think this one is 9 years old, as I recall. I will say the particular unit we're trying to replace, we've got a maintenance history of at least $50,000. It was originally, you see the number here, 375, and we heard some remarks earlier about inflationary pressures and supply issues and so forth. We paid 200, I can't remember exactly, 200-something thousand for the last one 9 years ago. But we're starting to get a lot of maintenance, a lot of wear and tear. So this is important for us to keep. This is a very important program for us. And so this is a pretty high priority for us to try to get this replaced. We've got another one that's the same age that'll not too far away need to be replaced as well. And then we've got a third one we've made some investments in with our fleet team to try to keep it in good condition and try to stretch out the life of it for a few more years. With that,
So what is
Michael?
your purchase time on that? If you,
the lead time,
yeah, lead time.
I think, I think these are not as bad as other equipment. I'm going to say 3 or 4 months. Kim, anything on that you know of on the sweeper?
I think if we moved on this one, we could probably have one by the end of the year, pretty easy.
Okay.
I think if we
Six-
delay
6
it.
to 8 months.
Yeah, 6 to 8 months tops, but we could have one a little sooner if we can move on it pretty quickly.
And that's not too bad. That's more getting closer to typical what I would expect. But that's a great question. These days, we have to be aware of that, for sure.
Yeah, you can budget for it this budget cycle, and you not get your vehicle to the next budget cycle,
That's right.
or next. Yeah.
That's right. With that concludes our presentation, and we'd be glad to take any further questions or comments you have. We appreciate your time and attention.
Alderman Baggett, Alderman Peterson, and the chair has none also. Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Mark, while the Parks Department is coming up, why don't you take a minute or two to introduce them and anything else you would like to cover?
No, I would like to introduce Lisa Clayton, our Parks Director, and Paige Cruz, our Assistant Parks Director. They do a wonderful job and had a very busy year. So with that, have fun.
Thank you, Mark. Chairman, good afternoon. I do have Paige Cruz here with me as our Assistant Director, but I also recognize that Kevin Lindsay, Brian Walker, and Suzanne are all in the building. And so we're happy to have them, and I thank them for their leadership as we've gone through this budget cycle with them. As we move forward, I always share this vision, and now I feel like it's so long since y'all have created an amazing vision for the city, and it's very short and sweet. And so it's been 10 years since the Parks Department established a Parks Master Plan within our community. And at that time, this is kind of still rings true, and I always bring it forth, is to provide high-quality, accessible parks, historic sites, trails, and recreation amenities that will create positive recreational, healthy experiences for all residents, visitors of the city that make living, working, and playing in Franklin a city choice of within the region. And so I think that's still very important as we think about our historic sites, our community parks, and our athletics within this community as we grow and as the need be is always changing. Next slide, please. We currently have, this is our organizational chart. It continues to grow. One of the things that we have begun to challenge ourselves within the Parks Department is, what is it within the next 5 to 10 years that we need to continue to look outside the box of the existing positions that we have to serve our community? And we really do provide a plethora of different variety within, from the athletics and the maintenance of our athletics facilities, but also our urban forestry program is growing, our canopies are growing, then our right-of-ways. Recreation is changing, from the river to our public-private partnership, sports change. And so we're really kind of evaluating where does that next, where do we go from here, and what does it look like in the next few years? Next slide, please. Within the fiscal year of '26, we are looking at personnel a little over $5 million. This includes salary increases, also budgeted overtime. We have around 53. We have actually 54. And we'll continue to grow, and I'll address how that growth, y'all have been very kind to us as we see growth within our land management program. As we gain property, you also have to maintain property. And where can we do some public-private partnerships? Where can we share those costs? All of those things are considered, and so we've been very fortunate as far as personnel. For the operations, we are looking at around a difference of a decrease within the operations. Not that we don't have, it's really about the general liability and the insurance from that standpoint, but what does that, you know, we really are maintaining this next year because we will see new growth coming in the next fiscal years as we'll go through. This next slide we've had a couple of years. Y'all been very kind in looking at what our park system looks like and kind of setting the tone for what the next 25 years will be. I will not be here, but I just wanted to share that. But we are setting the tone for what it will be, and but we've got a fantastic, we've been very fortunate in 2024, and all of y'all have been to every ribbon cutting we possibly can have, is we had Thompson Alley walk through the door for a great neighborhood park. We had the bridge that walked through the door at Harlansdale and the historic Hayes home. And so the continued public-private partnerships, I don't want to forget about Battle of Franklin Trust and Franklin's Charge as we continue for the growth of the battlefield and how we can continue to enhance those areas. But what we will see, and it's under construction, if you haven't been by Bicentennial, it's really changing that area. And we hope that as a city, as I've talked about it for years, but you all know the same, as we activate a site, it also activates the private sector in that area, and we sure hope that it does. And so landscaping is currently going in, and we hope to finish Bicentennial here by 1st of summer. And so the Heritage Ball, because we are here, we've kind of revamped our city hall and able to have meetings in this great space that the city owns. The Heritage Ball will not be at Eastern Flank this year, and you'll see it at Bicentennial. So that'd be one of our larger events, and we'll be anxious to see how that we navigate that site, along with many other smaller events that we're excited for the community. The main barn will come online this year. We tried to post as much as possible. Communications does a great job to come out, take those pictures, fly the drone through our facility. But like this particular facility, being able to host things within that site, from private events and public, and just opening it up for the public for that great historical site is going to be very important for us. Roper's Knob, one of the things that you will see over the next, in this coming year, we're kind of putting a master plan together conceptually, as you all We have purchased the Hill Haven property, which is additional 14 acres. It's also about activating that site and what could be. So looking at some conceptual master plans for that site and how do we begin to connect to it, and there's a lot of public-private partnerships that will take place. Huffines Ridge, we are finalizing the roadway as, for that particular project. That is in the Carruthers House and mountain biking. So as a RIM comes on board too, that we'll be gaining another several acres with that mountain biking trail and beginning to take a look of how that ties into Liberty Park, Columbia, and having close to over 10 miles of mountain biking trails in Cool Springs basically our hillside overlays, which I think is a great way to activate those sites. The Creekside property, we've gained property through the purchase, but there's also now, we'll be coming in April before you to take a look at a conceptual master plan that we've done with Friends of Franklin Parks to activate if you were to purchase, and that was part of your CIP to consider, is the homestead of that property and how you connect not only to the existing sites with the park at Harlansdale and the Matt Catcher for the multipurpose trails, but also how do you link that back to Cool Springs and to Roper's Knob overall. So we'll be bringing that before you with the consultant to hear your feedback of what could be if you decide to purchase that property. Also, part of that master plan will be is how do we activate the sites in which we have purchased, and what does that mean?
So are we looking at, the 14 acres we've already done, agreed to. So are we looking at the house too?
Yeah, so the 14 acres is on the other side of Roper's Knob, or on the other side of the Creekside House. So that's the Hill Haven, which is direct access to Roper's Knob. The Creekside is around the historic home on the Franklin Road side, and that was 40-something acres,
The 45 acres. in which we
45
purchased.
acres at Creekside, and there's 3 acres with the house.
Okay.
So that would be that's the breakdown.
So to be able to come before you and let's take a look at not only of what that conceptual master plan of what that would look like, but if we do obtain that site, where do you want staff to go? Not just parks, but as the other, right there at that gateway, as that property has developed, that another church is, my understanding, has purchased, how do you navigate that area? And what does that corridor look like? That'll be important to kind of the focus, not just for parks, but city staff overall. And so, again, we'll be coming before you and with the city administrator and our assistant city administrator, bring that before you. Liberty Park, of course, we're engaging that particular site again and being able to use parkland impact fees with that area. And then, of course, you all know we have next Wednesday is the groundbreaking for the Pearl Bransford Complex, in which we will celebrate that along with Robertson Lake and activating that site for the next several years as it's under construction. And so with saying that, what I'd like to do is now turn this over to Paige Cruz, and we'll go through our PERs. So thank you for letting me share those.
Good afternoon. This first one you see here is this is a replacement for the retrofit existing lights with LED lights in our, what we call Phase 2, but it's baseball fields 5 through 8 at Jim Warren Park, and it's a batting cages as well. We just completed Phase 1, fields 1 through 4, and a batting cage in that area. And we also completed Liberty as well. And just like we talked earlier, you heard Street saying they were playing catch-up on vehicles. We've been playing catch-up on lights. But we're getting there. And the lights we have now, I think it's important to note, they've been there since 1997. And in the lighting world, 28 years is old. It is... really, the lifespan is more around 25 years or even earlier, but technology is there now and LED is there, and it's really hard to get the replacements for the HID, so that's part of this too. We have no existing warranty in this Phase 2 right now, so what that means is we can turn the lights on by our phones, or staff can, or by the computer. We have that software, but we don't know if it works or not until the till they actually don't come on. So anybody that knows anything about baseball, that's not good, because that basically means it could be a tournament, it could be league play, it could be anything, and that's usually when we find out at 6:30 or 7 when the lights don't come on. So in saying that, we use these fields for rec travel consistently, but we also use it for tournaments. We host 5 tournaments annually at Jim Warren and Liberty. We also, and when I say that, we host from all over different states. Just an example of one tournament last year in hotels, there's 250 beds in just one tournament. So if you do the math on 5 tournaments, they come from all over, not just southern states, but we had people from New York, Atlanta, Alabama, anybody close to us, but also as far as from Wisconsin up north, Chicago, those areas as well. And we can purchase this off a cooperative agreement, so that's important too. The whole package, including the installation as well. So that is that slide.
Then the next slide is, and Paige and I will share this, and especially if you have any specific, because she has worked heavily with our consultants and our team on Liberty. But this is the playground resurfacing. This particular playground went in around 2008 when we built the next phase. And of course, the salt facility and the roadway through there and our disc golf course is there. But as we begin, and we're going to start the construction, we'll bid and do the construction of Liberty Park, it's important to go ahead and redo this resurfacing. Again, it's been down since 2008. Kevin's team's been very good to go out. We have repaired it and repaired it, but it has seen its life. And plus, you know, if you've stayed outside every single day since 2008, you may look the same way. So if you'll continue on the slides, you begin to see it's been wonderful. It was a port and play. It was high end at the time. Our goal is to come back in as we redo this area. We're adding some shelters. We're adding a pavilion in this area. We're adding a basketball court. We're adding a small farmer's market or event facility that's on this site. And all of this ties into pedestrian access to this particular playground. And it does get lots of use in the McKay's Mill area. And so we definitely need to redo the resurfacing. We do not have to take out all of the equipment, but we would like to do the resurfacing. And this just shows some other examples of how it's been utilized over the years. And that shows to the right is a picture, that is the rendering that you can actually see of what would be as part of this next construction phase of adding a pavilion. That could be some revenue, but it also, for this side of the area, to have a pavilion, to be able to do events on this site, and then baseball's here as well. This is 85 acres, for those that may not remember, that we purchased as a city in Cool Springs for $10,000 an acre. And so we have utilized this site, I think, to its fullest, and we're excited about this next phase.
This next one is a replacement for existing skid steer. This is, we've asked for this last year as well, but just to note, 5 divisions use this, and we would say 3 to 4 days a week it's being used. And those projects could be anywhere from field renovation, top dressing, to tree work, special projects for maintenance facilities, those divisions, landscape. We used one similar to this for 3 of them actually after a pilgrimage, just to let you know, to do repairs, all going at the same time by our staff, doing a lot of those repairs. And our existing one we would want to replace is a 2014. It's got, I would say, right now, it's probably more than that, but it's at least over $26,000 that we've done in repairs. But 2014, that is an older one, or I'm sorry, 2004 is an older one. It's got over 4,000 hours, so it has got some age to it on this one. This one is also a replacement. Yes, sir.
Do you mind going back to that? Hold on. You had 3 of those in Harlesdale repairing what the pilgrimage tore up?
Yes, sir. We had rain this year, if you recall, some bad weather, so yeah. And that was to do it faster. We used, our staff was able to do it, but we were running them in multiple areas, kind of in zones, if you would, per se, just to speed it up, get a section done, move on, but we had multiple ones going. We rented one, we borrowed one from streets, so yes, we.
And I have no objections whatsoever to getting it done as quick as possible. Were we compensated any for that?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
we are. Yeah.
Adequately?
Yes, sir, I think so. We get all our labor back, and it's part of that too, if that's what
Okay.
you're, yes,
All
sir.
right.
So time and labor is consistent, we put it in a work order, so they're billed multiple times for the actual park, but all the repairs, so yes. Including fence repairs that you probably noticed too, so a lot of fence repairs. The next slide is replacement as well. This is a reel mower, and this is to replace an existing rotary mower. We still have a few in existence on the athletic side. The current one we would be replacing is a 2014, probably got closer to 2,000 hours on it now. We just have gone over the years, which, because we have good staff and turf backgrounds, we've went to the reel, just a better looking cut, better quality, more like a golf course, higher standard. So we're just trying to really replace our older ones, and this was replacing our 4500 we have that just has a lot of hours on it, so. And this one, not to be confused with the other skid steer, but this is a mini skid steer. And this one, we've asked for before, but I feel we're in a better position now. And I know Brian's back here, but we are almost fully staffed with urban forestry, closer than we've ever been. We have one offer left that we're getting ready to offer. So there's 6 techs on this, actually crew, plus the 2 supervisors. And so this one is to actually get in those tight spots that you see downtown or parks. And obviously, you can imagine there's a person that will be operating it from the behind there, standing on it. We don't have anything like this, but this would allow us, and it does come with 2 attachments, but we would, existing now, some staff are moving those logs, sometimes manually or however they can get them moved. So this would help us get in those tighter spots, be safer about it, but also get downtown in some of those tight spots and right-of-way areas where we don't have room for those bigger pieces of equipment, so.
That kind of concludes our PERs. The last thing we always like to just share is some of the revenue. With us being in this facility, we had around $182,000 in revenue this past year. I think one of the things that we don't reflect as much is this is with the general fund budget, but we do a lot of fundraising with public-private partnerships. And so that equals into quite a few $1 million. And so, but when we're looking at our facilities itself, now that we will utilize this facility for our meeting space, while City Hall is being, I guess, relocated, rehabbed, and redone, we're going to take close enough. We will lose some of the revenue from this particular. We'll have just events on the weekends here. And so here comes the main barn. We'll have about a half a year of a calendar year for the main barn, bicentennial. And then, of course, the regular pavilions, the film permits, events that we host in the park. One of the things that we've been working on for about a year that we'll be bringing forth in the new fiscal year is when these areas come on site, come on board, then we will online of what that cost is and to codify our fees for those. We are also looking at one of the things to consider, and we wanted to share this with you today, is such as the Harlansdale. Being able to close certain parks for certain things is not as conducive as it used to be. And when I say that is when you add the infrastructure of adding pedestrian access and it's open and it's utilized more by our general public, it's harder to close those for multiple weeks at a time. And Harlansdale is one of those areas. And so we would like to take a look at, if they are going to close it, then it's not just about the event. It's a hardship, and therefore our citizens can't use those areas. And for a larger event, that sometimes closes almost a month. And so we'd like to begin to charge those areas. It may not be as much as the event itself, but being able to recoup some costs that you can put back into that park through a general fund or whatever it might be, or even repairs, I think is very important. And so just consider that as we kind of move forward and open to those ideas that we bring forth, and like to hear your thought process with that too. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have or specific questions about any of our projects or the budget itself. Thank you, Michael.
Alderman Peterson. Alderman Baggett.
The revenue for, back on that slide, 135,000, how much if there was a particular event at Harlansdale that closed down the park for a month, like, how much of that how much is our largest single event fee, I guess is probably the best way to, like, how much, that's a lot of money, 135,000 for pavilions, permits, but I bet a lot of that's from a couple of events.
Yeah, 2020 changed the pavilion world, and our canoe launches, but really on the rental side, we stay booked with pavilions. It's hard to find a weekend that's not, whether it's birthday parties, whatever the reason, which is a good thing. And we've picked up more and more film permits, obviously where we are and located. More and more, I feel like, of those. But obviously, pilgrimage is one of our largest, and they're invoiced in more than one invoice. We still have one. I'm not sure that we've even invoiced this last one. We just finished the work. So they're invoiced for the actual park itself, for the event that they use the space, and then they're later invoiced. It could be multiple invoices with repairs. It depends on our work order. They've already been invoiced one of those, and then we have our last one that we're finishing up, which has been our fencing, and it's been a big one. So those are usually multiple. In the past, we have done the fencing in-house with Kevin and his team, but we've decided it's better, it works out better for us to contract that out, so.
So, and I hear you, I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, because, you know, if I rented the pavilion at Harlansdale, I don't know, was it like $100 or something maybe, or something like
Yeah,
that?
around 100.
Unless it's a corporate, yeah.
Unless it's corporate. then-
Unless it's corporate, and it might go up to
Yeah,
200.
so I'm trying to figure out, and you're saying they're booked all the time, or on the weekends?
Yes. So you have.
Do we turn people away, do we turn people away for pavilion rentals?
Always.
Always.
Always, because
Especially Pinkerton, Jim Warren are pretty popular, but even Fieldstone's become more popular.
every weekend,
Aspen.
once we hit spring, then every pavilion that we have in our entire park system is rented every weekend. Every weekend. There's not one pavilion that's not rented. You could add a lot more of those type, and those are some of the
That's
things,
for an
those
hour,
smaller.
right? Is that, I'm sorry.
No, that's for an all day.
You get it all day.
So, and that usually, I mean, you come in, usually they're bringing it, such as like a Jim Warren Park in the Screened In Pavilion, they're bringing in birthday parties, we had family reunions, you name it, they're there. But they like to, we used to do half a days, that's really hard on staff, but it's also hard on the event, because if you're trying to decorate, and people always try to put their small ones, but they're always used.
And some is returning year to year, and some is new, so it's a combination.
I'm kind of curious about the pavilion revenue specifically. You can just send an email to me later.
We're-
Simply because I know for a fact, because we've tried to rent some pavilions, my company, and actually succeeded, but then couldn't do it. Anyway, that's beside the point. The point is that I know it's very popular, and it seems like if the citizens are really going after something, it might be something we should think about if there are more locations for pavilions in some of these new parks.
Right.
And so I'm sure y'all have thought about that, but I'm just curious about the revenue.
Absolutely.
Those-
We have it broke down by the pavilions and by the specific pavilion inside of a park, so we'd be happy
That'd be
to
great.
share that with you. One of the things that we are building as far as the new construction is with Liberty, you would have a new pavilion there. And then we need to think about that. We have thought about that and what could be, it's such as the Robertson Lake and the new Pearl Bransford complex. Absolutely. On that side of town, anytime you can provide, and even at Harlansdale, we've suggested that we would take some of the couple smaller barns and turn those into pavilions. Those are small, easy, affordable type areas for our community. And, you know, our community comes out for these events. But they also, believe it or not, when you have 4 or 5 kids, as we do sometimes, or 3 in a family, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's more affordable to do something like this and then invite everyone.
That's right.
So, absolutely.
And you have this building too, so not to forget, this is a big
Is part of
rental.
that, too.
Yes, part of that too.
And I would also add that Lisa and her team over the years have done a very good job at basically trying to create business plans when doing the evaluations of new capital projects. So it's not just evaluating, as you've seen in earlier slides, how many additional employees am I going to need to properly staff these new facilities as they come online, but also looking to maximize those revenue generating opportunities in a fair and responsible manner to the citizenry. So the goal is not that Parks pays for itself, but the goal is that if you have the opportunity to offset some of the cost, we will maximize our ability to do that.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Mr. Hilty,
Good afternoon, sir.
introduce our next guest.
Our next guest is me. Mr. Scott Willier is out of town today, and unfortunately, he's not able to join us. So I will walk through his piece and answer any questions that I can. So emergency management is the next division. They were established in 2022. And were established to perform the emergency management function for the city in coordination with Williamson County. They also work on all of our special events, of which there are many, as you know, as well as our continuity of operations plan. It's a 2-person division. They are on call, or they're available 24 hours a day, and support the city, residents, stakeholders, state and county emergency personnel. If we can go to the next slide, please. So their next 2 slides are a list of accomplishments. I'm going to touch on a few of them. The top one there is the continued work. They have a working draft of the Asher Plan, which stands for Active Shooter Hostile Event Response Plan. So that is that's being coordinated with all the other jurisdictions in the county as well. So that's a work in progress. We have a draft debris management plan, and that's not yet gone out for proposals yet, but we hope to do that here at the end of this fiscal year or early next fiscal year. They've also developed an incident action plan for all of our special events throughout the calendar year, which is no small undertaking. If we can go to the next slide, please. Gino Fantoni is part of the team with Scott Willier, earned his TMA instructor qualification, which we're excited about for him. And the last one I wanted to touch on, they supervise the design and execution of the new incident command trailer. And reason I wanted to mention that, Scott is actually up in Pennsylvania this week, kind of doing the final walkthrough. We expect delivery next Tuesday on that trailer. So, next slide. So this is the organizational chart. They're part of the administration team and fall under my purview in Public Works. Next slide. We have a decrease in the personnel budget, and I think that was, well, as the note states, it was a result of being a slightly higher budget last year than necessary. Next slide. Slight decrease of about $5,000 in operations. And the last slide, we have one program enhancement request. So this is the Archer barrier system that we use in the downtown events. They're looking to purchase 2 additional kits. Each kit has 8 barriers within them, plus 26 standalone barriers, which in the end will have 60 barriers within the city and should be able to block off all of the different pathways into the events that we host in our downtown. Now, it would still require I don't know the specific number, but at least one fire apparatus to kind of balance out, blocking off the areas. But this was reviewed with Scott and Fire Department, and they feel confident this will get us to where we need to be with respect to that. So that PER is just shy of $450,000. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a very small department, as you know, so. Yeah,
Those last year, how many did we get last year? It was around $90,000, I feel like.
Excuse me, I believe that it was
8?
a system, so it was 8
8
plus the trailer.
So
Yep.
8, so that they're cheaper by themselves.
yes.
I was just trying to back in that math. We got 8 in a trailer, but the trailer's I guess the expensive part there. It's 400, does that make sense?
It does. You'll have to have enough, you have to have enough, you don't have to have, trailers for every single
Right.
set of 8, but you do have to have enough trailers to
Get 'em all out.
efficiently
Roll
get
them
them
out.
out there and deploy them.
Correct.
With New Orleans, I think that's a very much worthwhile needed program myself, so.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you very much.
Next.
Next, I would like to introduce Nate Ridley, our new Director of Sanitation and Environmental Services, as well as Wayne Sullivan, who is the Operations Manager at SES.
Right. I'd like to say good afternoon.
I asked Nate if he was ready. He said he stayed ready.
I'd like to say good afternoon to the committee, Chairman Barnhill, Alderman Peterson, and Alderman Baggett. Before we start, I would like to say it is an honor to sit up here and represent the men and women of the sanitation department. It is not a glorious job, but they get the job done every day. Most of the time, you don't see them. If you hear something in it, it is bad news. We pretty much come through like the scrub and bubbles and try to take care of everything. But very honored to be up here. And I want to read this, the purpose of our department to you. The Sanitation Department, Sanitation Environmental Services Department team is responsible for collection and disposal of residential and non-residential solid waste, residential recyclables, yard waste, bulky items, and we strive to provide and maintain a high level of service through efficient use of resources and as we focus on the safety of our team. We service over 27,000 points in the city. And as we get into our accomplishments, you'll see how that adds up. And we have over 60% of participation in our recycling. Accomplishments, and this is the part that I like to brag about because this is what a lot of people don't see. All they see is us. They see the truck pull up, get the garbage, and it leaves. But we touch over 2.5 million service points within the city within the year. Responsible for over 6,000 service requests, transferred over 73,000 tons of MSW or garbage. We transferred over 2,700 tons of recycling to Marshall County, and then also a total of yard waste over 1,400 tons processed. And this was a pretty unique year for us because we had the entry-level driver program, and we were able to get 4 equipment operated ones in and get them transferred over to equipment operated 2 through this program. It has been successful for us. We're currently, those 4 have went through, and we currently have 2 more that are going through now, so that gives us a total of 6. The recruitment for this program has been a big deal for us. We'd like to thank Chris Franklin for getting this started for us. It actually just started out as an idea, but when Chris came on board, it became a reality. So we'd like to give kudos to Chris for that.
Yeah, that was certainly a team effort. I know Jerry Hatcher was part of it, Nate and Wayne were part of it, Chris Franklin, of course, part of it. There have been over 20 drivers trained in this, and at $8,000, is that the right number, Chris? 26 drivers? 28? 28. So at $8,000 per class, we've saved a great deal of money on this program. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Next slide, please. This is our organizational chart. You're looking at least 48 full-time employees that's fully funded. Probably about 45 of those are filled right now. We still have 3 left. When we say we try to utilize our resources, what we're trying to do, we mean people also. So within this organizational chart, we're going to be making some minimal moves to utilize the resources that we have, and we're probably going to be asking for an ad. You'll see that in the PRs as we get on down and continue to be able to tell our story. Base budget request for personnel, 2025, you were looking at 4.9 million. There's an increase to 5.2 million. You're looking at least 286,000 increase, or 5.8. The reason for that, you're looking at cost of living, wages, and the medical and pension costs going up. For operations for 2025, we had 7.4 million, well, 7,458,000, and then you're going to have a decrease to 7,418,000. Or 0.5%. The reason for this is the lower tonnage that's coming across our scale, and then there's a slightly increase in our tipping fees. So that's where you're seeing this decrease come from.
Why do you think there's lower tonnage coming across?
Well, sometimes you have some companies that pull out and go to different facilities. One of the major.
The commercial?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One of the major decreases we had was waste management coming across the scale. They kind of pull some of their trucks back and they'll send them back in. So it's an ebb and flow to it. And then
Has that been since we changed our rates?
no, it actually started happening before we changed our rates.
The main thing with waste management is they operate their own landfills, so they've got resources that they can take their own waste too.
Yes, sir.
At some point in time, it's not economically good for them to use our facility, so they can carry it to their own.
Thank you.
Sir. Capital. For 2025, we had yes, sir.
Before we get away, and this is more for people who are watching this, if they come to you back, the truck comes to your back and they pick up, they've got a blue can and a black can. And then they've got a refrigerator sitting out there. And they've got some brush sitting out there. All 4 of those things go 4 different places, right?
Yes, sir. Well, if you got your can, you got your MSW, that comes to us to transfer. You have a blue bin recycling that goes to Lewisburg for processing.
Okay.
The brush that we bring it to our air curtain, the destructor, and that's burned and put into our mulch system. And the refrigerators are recycled through a company that we have when we keep that out of the waste stream also.
All right.
Yes, sir. Next slide, please. The capital. For 2025, we had 1.2 million, and then as you see for 2026, it's 0. So this is a very interesting story, and I would love to tell it to you guys. When we say we have 18 to 24 months for delivery of equipment, this is actually what we're dealing with right now. We're actually still waiting on 2 side loaders to get here, and we're actually waiting on an air curtain destructor to get here also. The 18 to 24 months have kind of turned into almost, you're looking at 2.5 years. So the production on the side of materials, having materials in and getting it in, that has put us in a little strain. But we continue to use our current equipment and make adjustments.
This number will not be 0 when the formal budget is finalized in May, because we'll have another 2 months and we'll know what trucks we're not going to get that are part of that 1.2 million. And then anything that is added as a program enhancement will, of course, be in here. But at this moment, if everything came in before June 30 and no program enhancements were funded, that would be what that looks like. So.
Yes, and fingers crossed, the 2 silos will be here in May. So, next slide, please. This is our program enhancement request, and me and Wayne, we're both going to kind of tag team this, but I'm going to let Mr. Wayne start it off.
All right, Nate's going to handle the personnel requests, and I'm going to take care of the equipment ones. Our first priority item is the materials handler. We've asked for this one in the past. It's going to be a facility tax item. We're looking to expand our burn yard to keep up with the volume of brush. It'll add more efficiency to our operation and allow for a more cleaner burn. We have to maintain visual emissions standards with TDEC, so we got to be in compliance with that. Well, currently we use a wheel loader. It's not quite as efficient as a materials handler would be. When you load the box, it tends to load it up in the center. So once the ashes pile up in the middle, then it breaks the air curtain and it'll cause some visual emissions, and we have to shut down operations for a couple days, clean the box back out and start over. So a materials handler will let us cherry pick and put the material in each end or wherever a little bit more strategically, and it'll also increase our throughput productivity on the ACD box. And we are looking to procure that second ACD. So this will be a vital tool for us, which is kind of why we have it at the top of our priority list. We will evaluate our throughput after we get the second one running to see if we might be able to liquidate our grinder and possibly maybe the old backhoe. The materials handler can act as a backup too for our transfer station with the open pit. If a crane went down, we had to pack recycling or something of that nature, or if the compactor broke down and we had to load trash through open tops. So it's got a lot more uses than just the burn yard. Any questions on that one? The second priority item is we're looking to replace our 11-yard mini packer with a mini automated side loader. We actually looked at this one last year too. It'll be important as a transition piece for equipment operator ones going through the ELDT training program, so they can come in, get some experience. It's a non-CDL unit. They can operate the smaller side loader and gain experience while they're getting their CDLs, getting route training. And right now we have some smaller areas where we can't get a full automated side loader into, like we familiar with Gateway Village. There's 233 cans in there we have to service by hand. So with this smaller truck, we could get it into that area, take an employee off the back of the truck and be a little more safe and efficient with that.
You have to do what in Gateway Village, 200, how many?
There's 233 cans collectively in there.
Individual trash cans, not commercial, but somebody.
Just individual waste containers. The alleyways are too tight to get the larger side loaders in, so we have to send a rear loader through. And that's collectively between MSW and recycling, the 233 total containers. So you could have one person, one truck service that area rather than somebody driving, somebody on the back, out in the elements too, so it makes a difference. So I'll let Nate cover the PER request for personnel.
All right, we have a few personnel requests that we have, and that's what we were talking about earlier. We're looking to take, to reclassify tech support 1 into tech support 2. This is going to create a little bit of separation within that department and also create a career path for our employees to follow. One of the main things that we tried to focus on and moving forward is building up from internal with the training and making sure we have people that can come in and be able to do the job and do it at a high level. But this is going to definitely help us. This is going to be an ask of at least $6,700 for financial impact is what you're looking at. But we definitely need to add this in. If you guys agree to this, this will be great. And it will also improve morale. I can kind of see that, would have that separation in there. And the guys that see that we're trying to make it a better place for them to work. On our next one, this is an ad for Equipment Operator 2. We definitely need this. We have growth in the city of Franklin that is going crazy right now. We definitely need this. And as you'll see, we have another ad for a side loader here too. And Mr. Wayne, I kind of explained it to you why we're adding a side loader and another piece of equipment. Definitely on, I think, Tuesdays or Wednesdays and Thursdays, we're receiving growth and looking to add the 7th route, but he will get into that. This will add to our capacity to continue to perform at a high level and pick up the garbage. And to put in, I had to look back at my notes. The last personnel increase we had was 3 years ago. And we're kind of in line with our 3 to 5 year plan that we have of adding equipment and people also. So we're kind of staying on schedule, and we'll be able to stay on schedule if we make this add or we get this request.
So our fifth item is to replace 146 road tractor. Our current road tractor is 2012 with over 500,000 cumulative miles. That's engine and road miles. It should surpass its 10-year life expectancy in our 3 to 5 year plan, so it's slated to replace. This unit transports recycling to Marshall County daily and serves as a backup to waste hauling if we needed it ourselves, had an issue with a hauler, vendor, something like that, and we had to move our own waste. It can be utilized to transport wood waste or chips, as needed. And the current unit, if replaced, it would just be liquidated on Gov Deals as surplus. Yes, sir.
Alderman Baggett.
I'll take this opportunity to ask about our electric tractor and that we got from the VW settlement. Is that Energizer Bunny still running?
You got it, okay.
The electric tractor was a great dream. But when we got to it, the infrastructure did not make sense. The infrastructure was going to actually cost more than what we were getting in grant monies, and we were going to end up coming out of pocket from the city. So we're going to continue to explore alternative fuels and different things like
No, I'm
that,
good
but
with
yeah.
not getting it. I just am curious. I just have been wondering how that
Yes, sir.
electric tractor was going to work
Yes, sir.
long term. And glad, I guess not glad. I mean, I'm just good to know that it isn't.
There was some issues associated with a number of the working components as well. So
Yes.
it was not all it was dreamt it would be.
No Tesla.
Is that called a battery?
There's a number of concerns we had, so yes. Thank you for
But
the
in
question.
that, it was a great learning experience, so if we had to apply for a grant again, we got a roadmap to get that done.
Well, you don't have to keep trying. I'm just saying.
Yes, sir.
And I don't have the costs of maintenance and repairs on that 146, but we are starting to experience a lot of issues with our 2012 model road tractors. We have 3 of them, and they're all 2012 models. One of them stays on the road more than the other 2. Those stay on the yard dropping and hooking, so they're not as used, but it's time to start considering replacing those trucks so we can get on a more consistent replacement cycle with those, because they are pretty vital to our transport. No, go ahead.
We definitely need those trucks because it's we'll be able to maintain our capacity to haul garbage. Say if something goes wrong with our hauling system, and we'll be able to haul garbage to the landfill ourselves. And being able to keep that capacity to haul is key to our operations.
But when you said you had 3 and you keep one pretty well active, would you rotate the driver between the 3 to put your mileage and wear and tear fairly even
Yeah.
on each one? Okay.
Yes, sir. Is there any more questions on the road tractor? All right, our 6th item is we're looking to replace Unit 180 side loader. It's part of our daily residential refuse collection fleet. It services over 1,000 cans per day. It's a 2020 auto car, so it's right at 5 years old, and that's consistent with what we're looking at for the automated side loader replacement. They'd go into a 2-year backup roll after that and then liquidate it after 7 years of service. If that one gets replaced, we'd have it as a backup for 2 years and then get rid of it. Still, with the lead times on the side loaders, we're still looking at 12 to 24 months to possibly 3 years at some point. So, we probably want to go ahead and start looking at replacing that. Like Nate said, 2 of the side loaders were FY23 period are just now landing in May, so. The 7th item is to add an automated side loader for MSW collection. That'd be a facilities tax item. We've optimized our routes here recently. We're trying to keep our containers in the 1,000 to, 1,100 cans per route. Our 14 route on Thursday has grown to 1,400 cans, so, that operator's kind of stretched on getting it done, and all that's out towards Cool Springs too, so from Century to there and back is a long commute. So we're going to be looking to add that 7th route within this calendar year. I mean, just getting the additional truck, and like Nate said, these directly correlate with the equipment operator ad in the truck. So we're there now to where we need to add another route. After recalibrating all the routes that we have on Thursday, there's 6 that run, and they're all sitting at about 1,200 cans per route, so we don't have any more room for growth. The 8th item on the list is to replace a forklift. We've asked for this a couple times in the past too. Unit's 25 years old. We actually got it from the street department. It's been here longer than I have. So I've been here 15 years, so.
I'm right on par with it.
Yeah, it's been here about as long as Nate has, so. No, it's crucial to our BOPA operation. We get in pallets of electronics through BOPA, big heavy pallets of paint that we have to load onto trucks when our contract vendor comes to pick them up. And the one that we have is starting to have a lot of issues. One of the spark plugs blew out of the cylinder head, and you can't buy a replacement cylinder head for it because the parts are obsolete. So we had to helicoil it, patch it, repair it, just keep it running. So it's just gotten to the point where it's not reliable on a day-to-day basis. We do have some pallet forks for our skid steer where if it breaks down, we can grab the skid steer loader, but it's not as easy to manipulate material with that skid steer as it is the forklift. So we're looking to get that one replaced. And the last item on the list is our 2011 walking floor trailer. So this is a 14-year-old unit. It's used for transporting recycling in Marshall County. It can also be used for MSW, wood chip hauling, things of that nature. We're starting to have some electrical problems out of it, and all of our trailers are kind of on the same, plan as the road tractors. They're all about the same age and year model, so we got to start rotating in some newer stuff to make sure we can be sustainable in those areas. We've had fleet come out a couple times to Marshall County, have to send the tech out on a 2-hour venture to come, see what the wiring problem is on the trailer or why the walking floor slats won't work. So, ETA lead time on those are about 12 months. So, we probably need to go ahead and start looking into getting that replaced and get us on a little bit better rotation schedule. I think our life expectancy on the trailers, we had it 15 years, so it's right at the mark. And we don't want to have to replace them all in one budget year.
Any questions of Nate Wayne?
Yes, sir.
Go.
Yes, sir.
And you don't have to give me this now, but I would like to see a graph of the number of cans that we're issuing over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes, sir.
And then I'd like to know the percentage of diversion that we're doing and the percentage of recycling participation.
Yes, sir.
It's 58%.
Yeah, 58% diversion, but we will hammer those numbers down and get them to you.
Participation.
58% diversion?
Participation.
Participation.
Oh, participation. That's a lot of diversion.
And we'll get those diversion numbers for you. Thank you guys for the opportunity to be of service.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Everybody really appreciates.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mark, you up again, or will Michelle, if you're ready, take off?
Michelle Hatcher, Water Management.
All right.
You just got me. I don't let the rest of them out. Okay, so thank y'all for letting me present this. This is, the budget is always the most fun time of year. So the purpose of our department to support the city's vision to continually strive enhancing the quality of life through our exceptional, responsive, and cost-effective water service to include drinking water distribution or treatment distribution, wastewater collection and treatment, and then reclaimed water distribution for customers.
primarily in the city, but we do extend beyond that in some places. So the next one, this is our org chart, and last year, the budget and finance team made it very pretty. So it is, we had about 98 people. We only have a couple openings this year, which is different than in the past. We've been really fortunate to be able to recruit some really good employees, but then also retain them as well. We're in four or five different divisions. So the service division, which encompasses both collection and distribution, and then the reclamation facility, and then water treatment, and then utility admin. One of the really, I noticed everyone else had these cool accomplishment slides, so I'm going to throw some of my really happy accomplishments on here. One of the things we've done this year is one of the enhancements you improved a couple years ago was the creation of a biosolids manager. And so we filled that position internally with one of our operators, but then also have been working to reclassify the operators. And if you remember, the plant that we had before, our very shiny new plant right now, we didn't process solids really. We put them in a truck and hauled them to the landfill, and that process has vastly changed this year, these past couple years. And our operators went from being very cautious and very, concerned about taking control over it to being empowered to be able to make decisions about that. So Taylor has done a fantastic job, the biosolids manager, with kind of empowering his employees to be able to make those decisions. We've provided appropriate trainings. Communications has done a lot of videos that we've recorded. We have SOPs. So it doesn't sound spectacular, but it's really one of the greatest things that's happened this year for us. We also have better communications in our department. I think we're working together better as a department. The service division is going to help the plant, when we've got, lines that have broken. We're also doing, through kind of the efforts of looking at the South plant, with the Pearl complex that's going around that, we've also really improved our public communications this past year. So, besides, we do tours of our facilities, and we did a lot of tours at the pilot when that was working as well. But, I have a little, my dog and pony show that I've taken to Rotaries and to, done it to schools and to, senior ministries at churches. And it's really great to get out there into the community who doesn't normally recognize who we are and only, calls us when something bad goes on. But that's just been really nice to kind of have more of that outreach that we haven't historically had in the past.
And I would affirm that being a member of this year's Leadership Franklin class with Vice Mayor Potts, one of our first days, Michelle was able to come and speak during lunch, and it is a very good dog and pony show. So.
So just some really brief numbers. We have about 400 miles of gravity sewer, which has increased about 13% over the past 5 years. We have about 35 miles of sewer force main in the system, over 11,000 manholes that we inspect also and take care of. We have 24 pump stations. That number has varied over the past couple of years, but it is ultimately reduced. So through kind of some of the developments that have been happening, we've been able to take some pump stations offline, which is fantastic, and replace that with gravity. Great for our overall system. We have about 325 miles of water main that we maintain, and that's about increased about 12% too, so about at the same rate. So we'll go to the next slide. So our personnel, so in fiscal year 25, it was a little over 11 million. In fiscal year 26, it is a bit over 11 million, with an increase of about 3.3%, and that is based off of the higher medical premiums, pension cost, and wage and the merit increases. So our current staffing level is 101 full-time employees from the org chart. Our base budget request for operations has increased 5.6% from fiscal year 24 to 25. And this is one of the main changes for this is the way that some of the consultant services from capital projects was moved to actually the operating budget, which was a change, I think, in the way that finance needed to keep track of those. And then there's some other increases in insurance cost in there as well. There was a decrease in debt service. Good job. So our next one, our base budget request for capital is a decrease of 41.8% between fiscal year '25 and '26. And this is mostly related to the ARPA-funded projects. So everyone's favorite, the Lewisburg project, that will eventually be done. They are slowly moving down. They're slowly moving down Lewisburg. And then we have the other ARPA project that is happening out at the reclamation facility. That's, the bid award will be in the, I think it's the first April meeting, for you to review as well. Let's see, so if there are no questions, we'll go to the PERs. Okay. All right, so the first PER is a fiscal affairs manager. And I might need your help this one, Michael, for a little bit. So this is, I believe this position exists in fire and police as well. And so looking to bring more of a financial person into the water department to kind of help with some of those, more of the complex financial structures, essential to maintaining accurate accounting, payroll and budgeting, grant management and fiscal analysis. So someone to help with kind of some of the trending of our costs and understand how those are either increasing or decreasing, how they relate to some of the other operations. We seem to, I am more of an operations person, so having someone kind of be more of of a higher level to be able to manage those.
If I could add, Michelle, so this also being an enterprise fund, the accounting on this in water management is very different than general fund type accounting. So this person would help be able to support and bridge that gap between finance and water management. So, and it is arguably it's arguably the most complex budgets that we have in the city. So I think support in this area would be a great resource for Michelle and her team, and free up some time for the technical people to focus on the technical aspects of their job. So that's the purpose for this PER.
May I jump in?
Certainly.
To support that? Certainly, we've talked with this committee about the debt covenants that are applicable to water and sewer fund, and having a position to help focus on maintaining those debt covenants, such as the debt service coverage that we promised the state funding board for borrowing from the state revolving fund. That 125 debt service coverage is an example of additional financial requirements of the water and sewer fund that general fund does not have, that's related to its debt. So that is something that this position could also assist the water director in managing those debt coverage, covenant requirements.
I'm back at the org chart, but would you say, is it kind of these roles split between a lot of different people, or are we looking at?
I mean, I think it's me working with the budget team right now, so.
And finance.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a team effort I got you. Makes
So then
sense.
I let other stuff, other stuff fall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
While I'm trying to work through this and then try to pick up all that stuff, so.
No, that's good. Thank you.
We are always mindful where we ask to add, and capacity is an issue. I would assert that this is not possibly the most complicated budget. It is the most complicated budget. You've got 9 divisions, you've got 6 with staffing, you've got budgeted funds and the operating funds of water, wastewater, and reclaim, but then you also have to keep track of your impact fees and developer contributions separately, but yet roll them all up and then help translate them, and that's where finance gets intimately involved, in government-wide financials. And so trying to keep track of this and then working with our consultants on rate setting, which again, you'll see on Tuesday night because budget is the best time of year. All of these things, this has become intimately more complicated as the last decade has unfolded, both from the types of assets and infrastructure that we now operate, AKA the renovated water treatment plant and the practically brand-new wastewater treatment plant that we have, the water reclamation facility, but also the accounting changes as they have continued to evolve. It just needs additional support.
Okay, so the next one is, a couple years ago, you had, you gave us a maintenance manager. So this was someone who could, kind of over the maintenance of all of our facilities, right, and all of our pump stations. And as he has been kind of working through the maintenance of the reclamation facility right now, and now he's ready to start branching out to the water plant and all the pump stations that we have and helping those folks. So this is a vehicle for him to be able to do that. This is kind of consistent with all the supervisors that we have who go in between all of our different facilities. So let's see, next we've got, this is, right now at the reclamation facility, we had 2 equipment operators, and so those were essentially solely dedicated to driving trucks of biosolids to the landfill. Because we are now producing, we used to produce, 3.5 trucks a day. Because now we're producing almost less than 1 truck per day, we don't need 2 drivers. So what we're looking to do is officially, we've made the change, but officially assign one of those equipment operators to a clean water operator to kind of bolster that staff. We'd really like to have, so as I talked about, we've split between liquids and solids. Like to have 3 operators on each shift to kind of maintain consistent operations between, weekends and vacations time is really the safe way to do that. So this is removing an equipment operator and transferring to a clean water operator. The 4th enhancement is a new biosolids operator. So as I talked about how we split between liquids and solids, we worked on reclassifying some of those operators from, just regular clean water operators to be biosolids operators. So biosolids operator has a really, it's a high steam, it's a high pressure, it's, methane gas, which is explosive. It's a different environment that's quickly changing, that, it's not slow moving like biological processes are. And so this is a new operator to help with those enhancements, to help with those operations. So I talked about 3 operators on every shift to help with those weekends and vacation times. So this is still kind of, I know in the past couple years, we've continued to ramp up operations, which has been great with the additional people, but this is just one more added to that arsenal. So then we're gonna get into the 5th replacement is for our service division. And this is the replacement of one of the larger backhoes that we have with a small mini excavator. So this is taking what we had and replacing it with something smaller. So yards are getting smaller, with power lines, parcel lines getting smaller, roads getting narrower. We just really need a smaller piece of equipment to be able to maneuver in some of those areas. Tracks instead of wheels allow us to create less damage in yards and in roadways. And so this is just that replacement. The backhoe that it's replacing is Unit 42, and it has reached its useful life in here. So we intend to GovDeal that and then replace that with a new piece of equipment. Let's see, number 6 is a rubber track skid steer. So this would be replacing another one of the backhoes we have with a rubber track skid steer. So rubber tracks, they're not the steel tracks, but they obviously create less damage to roadways and to yards and stuff when we're working in them. This would be used like full-time by the service crews to do those service requests and work orders that we have. This is replacing Unit 66, which is, it's reached its life cycle cost as well. Let's see, so number 7 is a single axle dump truck. And so this is so similar to how Wayne had talked about some of the lead time for his, for his loaders. We anticipate this being a lead time as well of probably 2 years. So this would be purchasing that in anticipation of that lead time. So we don't fully expect it to come this fiscal year. It would probably be the next one or the one after 27 or 28. Let's see, number 8 is, so we recently, so also is one of the focuses in our department these past couple of years is to kind of enhance the maintenance that we do. So when we brought the new reclamation facility, like the upgraded facility online, we had historically not been performing a lot of maintenance in-house. But with being able to hire our maintenance manager, who was, he came with a great pedigree, a background of being in the water industry, We now have 2 maintenance technicians under him, and one of those is a communications technician. And he is really, his job is to really work on kind of the electrical and SCADA communication, like field equipment that we have. So when we have a piece of equipment lose communication with SCADA, we can't monitor it anymore, right? So he's been really helpful with going out to do that. We'd like him to go to both the water plant and to all the pump stations as well. So this would not be a take-home vehicle. This would be a vehicle for him to be able to use as he travels between all of those. Let's see, so number 9 is another replacement of a rubber track skid steer with,
No, sorry,
No.
my bad, I typed wrong.
I'm sorry, this
This
is
is for a new water and wastewater infrastructure assessment technician.
Okay.
The text is correct, the title is not.
yeah, okay, that's what
And
I
the
thought.
dollar amount is correct.
So this is, so we have one of these existing on our staff as well. So this was an enhancement that we had like about 5 years ago. We have a couple technologies that we've purchased, an acoustical technology that allows us to rapidly assess sewer mains. The problem is we have one person and we've got to pull someone else from the existing service division to be able to help him. We put a speaker and a microphone in manholes, and it requires 2 people. And then when those sound waves hit each other, it determines how blocked the main is. So this is asking for a second person to be able to operate that efficiently so we can really move throughout the system and get that assessed quickly.
If I may, real quick. So the way that we used to inspect gravity sewer mains was you put a camera down there and run a camera through, and you score it, you grade it per industry standard. It's a lot of time doing that. This is just really a quick, you can probably do a run of pipe within 5 minutes instead of doing setup, running cameras, all this other stuff. And if you run into potential issues, you can then later send a camera down in to better understand what's going on. So as Michelle had indicated, this really has advanced the ability to get through the system quickly and more efficiently, arguably reducing overflows that are caused due to blockages and things like that. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
This really allows us to get that low-hanging fruit that we could get quickly, by, cleaning or TVing, like Mark was saying. All right, so number 10 is a new telehandler. So this is a telescoping lift. If you've probably seen houses being built, right? This is what brings the roof trusses up to the top. But this is allowing us to get to some of those high equipment that we have that we're, and specifically in the reclamation facility, but also at the water plant as well. And while this will likely not be used, 365 days a year, we do intend for this to be available for the entire city to use as well. So I think, Fleet, and I know Parks has expressed some interest in this potentially being a resource to have, or I'm sorry, not Parks, facilities, to be able to have. So this would definitely be available for that. And then number 11 was the most recent addition. This is the reclassification. So we are one of the 2 departments left in the city that has a position, we call it administrative secretary. And those positions are just being phased out. I think streets is actually the last one, so they're both in the Public Works building. So we're just wanting to reclassify that to an administrative assistant. She's doing some more, with work orders, closing them out, and handling some basic parts of the coding, which is really above an administrative secretary is, kind of workload. So that's the last one that we're asking for. Let's see, so here is all of them in summary. Does someone talk about the debt service?
Sure, Christine and I are happy to. We do make it a point, and, this is the last major department that you're seeing, and we began talking about debt service overall, and we're going to end talking about debt service overall. On the screen is the 4-year window, 23 and 24 actual audited financials in terms of your debt service coverage for the Water Management Fund. We ended last year at 1.29% debt, 1.29 debt coverage ratio. You are legally required through the state revolving fund loans that you have taken on to maintain a debt service coverage ratio of 1.25. We like to have it much higher than 1.29, and the budget this year is based on 1.51. We're trending to have it end of the year at 1.72 in the forecast right now, again, with refinements, PERs to be added, and making sure that whatever rates the board looks at trying to adopt in the future being calculated in, which are not fully calculated in this budget at this point in time because that decision has not been made, is at 1.56 debt service coverage ratio. Christine, I don't know if you have anything to add.
You did a great job, Michael, walking through this. Certainly, I agree with Michael. I would like to just, because there are aspects of revenue that can be out of the control of the water department, such as if you have a rainy year, revenues can go down. I mean, that's an example of something on revenue. Certainly, operating expenses can go up if you have a year in which you have other factors such as inflation, or certainly if you have some operating expenses that have to be incurred that were not planned for. So I would always love to see a cushion between the 125 and something certainly above 135 gives you a little bit of cushion. So that's something that we had talked with the rate consultants about, was to have a little bit of a cushion in the options that the water department presents to the board, so that in the case of any one specific year and abnormalities that may happen, that we can maintain our debt covenants and not fall into a technical default on both our public offering debt as well as our SRF loans. So we're in a tight season with the existing debt, because we have been cresting at the high point of our debt service. We're going to start stepping down soon, and that's going to be helpful. And then certainly what the rate consultant and the department's been sharing with the board about future debt, and making sure that would be accommodated within the debt covenants that we have, is also looking forward. And that's just one of the things that we had talked with within the working group, was planning so that the next plant would not be as highly debt funded as the existing expansion was, where we were, this $153 million project was funded 91% with debt. We would like to have more cash funding in the next plant, which of course requires just years of planning and saving to get to where we could have that to be maybe more of 70% debt or 30% cash instead of less than 10%. So those were the types of conversations that we've had regarding the planning for the water and sewer fund. Is certainly the more debt you have, the higher the requirements are to maintain that minimum coverage, or even a little bit of a cushion within the coverage. So thank you for all the hours that the board members have spent working with the staff team, because we certainly have been spending a lot of time as staff, because we do take these promises and maintain our debt covenants very, very seriously. So thank you.
So the last kind of summary, so our budget provides to continue the programs and initiatives to continue our proactive approach to operations and maintenance. The budget continues the renewal efforts that focuses on areas in the city with aging infrastructure, with operational issues, taking advantage of federal resources to maximize local monies. The budget features program enhancements to ensure the department has appropriate resources and serviceable equipment to perform day-to-day functions. So thank you for listening. Is there any questions?
Any questions? Michelle, thank you.
Perfect.
Any other questions of anybody that presented? I don't see anybody much left, so hopefully there's no questions. Margaret? Monthly reports. Margaret, you're up.
Monthly reports. I'll highlight just a couple of items. Sales tax, as always, we were sitting at a little higher than 6.6 million. Received in February for December sales. That was a little over increase of $40,000 from prior year December sales. So I guess more people bought Christmas presents, or at least in Williamson County.
And I would like to give, if I can share Margaret's microphone, We do know that December of 2023's local option sales tax receipts had some corrections from prior periods, that there were a couple of retailers that had to do some corrections, and those were recorded in December of '23. So that's, you look at the essentially flat collections year over year for December, which is always our largest sales tax collection month of the fiscal year. There were some abnormalities in the '23 number. So we probably did increase slightly more than the 0.6%, but there were some entries that made that, that comparison look the way it is.
And I will skip down to gasoline taxes. For this, of course, is our state street aid that they mentioned during the budget presentation. Those are holding their own. They're pretty much relatively comparable year over year, so we're holding our own in that. I do have one note I would like to inform the committee. We made our final payment on the Water Sewer Revenue Series 2005 bond. So that was made today.
So come April 1st.
So come April 1st, it will be gone off of our.
April 1. All right. Margaret, anything else?
Not in my knowledge.
Okay. Anything else to come before the committee?
Just a roadmap of the road ahead. So your next meeting is April 10th. At that meeting, you will review outside agency requests, general expenses, transfers. I think those are the three remaining budgets that you have not seen. And then this weekend, more than likely, we're going to do everything we can by the end of tomorrow to get to Eric, and then he will send it out to all of you separately from the weekend update or weekly update. All program enhancement requests, and that will go to the entire board and the mayor for you to review. We're targeting to try to have those back Monday, March 31st, so we want to make sure to give you all a week to review them. They're sitting at around 9-ish million. Looking at Dylan, giving me a little head nod. He's just happy Auburn won. Around $9 million in total requests. We would have you do what you've done in the past, rank your top 15. We will then compile them in time that week of March 31st to get them in your packets, and then review them at the April 10th meeting. Your next meeting after that will be the May meeting, May 15th, again here, and that will be when the city administrator presents the fiscal 26 recommended budget. Don't know if there's any other items to add, Christine.
Do you mind just, and I think we've already got it, I may have it laying around someplace, just send us out every day for the meetings for the rest of the year. You got it? Do it, Tim. I would love to see one for Boma also. And I may have that too.
Sir, we can send that to all of you too.
Okay. You know, Mr. Baggett, he has a lot of children's events he has to go to.
That's so true.
And I want him to be able to well plan those.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Something every day.
If there's no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.